By now, I suppose you must have already got into the groove with respect to coding. I hope you're also enjoying every bit of coding with respect to Python and R. In just these 10 odd tutorials, we have already seen and experienced the potential of both Python and R. Today, we are going to cover list. Now, what is a list? List is something where you can have multiple data types. So earlier when we were talking about vectors, vectors could just have one single data type. So the moment you have the other data types along with it, it would get converted and all of them would be having one single data type. Just to recollect, when we had a few numbers and one string in that vector, everything gets converted into a string. Whereas with list, that is not the case. Let's get started with creating a variable L1. And to create a list in Python, we start off with these square brackets. And let me put 1, 2, 3. And let me also put Python as a string 3.45 and 8.96. All right. Now, if I execute L1, it would give me all these numbers. And if I look at the type of L1, it would say it is just a list. It is not saying whether it's a string or a number or a boolean. Now, if I want to look at the first element in the list, I would be doing it this way, L1, and the first element, since the indexing starts from 0, I just have to put 0 here and click on the shift plus enter button. It says 1. So 1 is the first element. And if I want to know the type, what exactly it is. So if I just put everything inside the parenthesis and click on the shift plus enter button, it says it's an integer, which indeed it is. Now, if I look at 0, 1, 2, and 3, let me look at L1, 3. What is it? It is Python. And if I want to look at what kind of element it is, and if I just put it in type, it says it's a string. So that is the beauty of list. List can accommodate multiple data types. And similarly, if I put type L1 and inside the parenthesis, if I just put 4 here, it says it's a boolean. So all data types are welcome here. All right. Now, what are the other things that we can do with list? L1 dot. And now if I click on the tab button, I have a few things here. Append, clear. Let's start off with append. So if I want to add a few parameters here, let's say I just want to add R programming here as well. And then if I click on L1, R programming gets appended to the list. Now, if I want to append two things in the list, let me try doing it this way. L1 dot append, and let's say I append big data and then data science. And then if I click on L1, it gives me an error. So it says append takes exactly one argument, 2 given. So there are two things that we can do. Either we can put the entire thing in the square bracket. And then if I click on L1, the only problem here is that this is another list inside the list. So this is the main list. This gets displayed as another list. So if we don't want it to happen this way, let me re-execute L1 and let me also re-execute this so that now we have big data and data science as parameters separated by a comma instead of it getting displayed as another list. So for that, what can I do? I have to use the extend, EXTEND. And now if I click on the run button, it gives me 1, 2, 3 Python, and big data and data science are now appearing with a comma separation. If we want to append more than one element in a list, we need to use the extend method here. And if we just want to append just one element, we can still use append here. All right. So this was about append and extend. Now, what else can we do with list? Let me click on the tab button here. I can also count. So if I do a count here, okay, now before that, let me just add a few more things in the list here. L1 dot extend to and Python. And if I click on L1 here, I'm sorry, I need to put the square brackets here. And now once I click on extend, it gives me all these numbers. So 2 is getting repeated thrice and Python is getting repeated twice. Now, if I type L1 dot count, and if I want to count how many times does the word Python appear in this list, and if I click on the shift plus enter button, it says it is appearing twice. So that's how we can use the count in a list. Okay, let's again click on the tab, and we have already learned about extent. Let's go to index. If I click on the shift plus tab, it will give me the options here. So what am I looking at? I am trying to look at the index of big data. So if I type big data here and click on the shift plus enter button, it says it's the seventh element. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how we get the index. And now L1 dot tab once again. Let me click on insert here. And if I want to insert a number, it's also given as an index here. So if I just insert, say 100, and then I print L1, sorry, I forgot to mention the index here. If I want to mention the index as 0, and then 100 has to be inserted. So what this particular command tells is, at the 0th index, I need to insert 100. Now, if I click on the shift plus enter button, 100 now becomes the very first element. So that's how we use the insert command here in a list. And now L1.tab once again and pop. If I use the pop function, so what it does is it would pop the very last item in the list. Now, since here we have Python as the last item, now if I just click on shift plus enter, it would say Python L1, it would display Python. But what actually it means is that now if I execute L1 again, the last element is 2 because Python is now out of the list. So that is a function of pop. Now let me go to L1.tab, and here I also have this option of remove. So if I want to remove a particular element, and then also I have an option of reversing and sorting. So let's take the example of reverse. If I just select reverse here and then click on the shift plus enter button, and now if I execute L1 again, now the entire list has got reversed. 100 was the first element earlier, and now it becomes the last element. So that's how reverse is taken advantage of. And then similarly, we can also do a sort function using L1.sort. Maybe you can try that at your end. All right, now let's move over to R. Let us now try to understand how we use list in R. To create a list in R, we just have to use the list function here. And now inside list, if I just type 1, 2, and 3, and then click on the run button, it would get displayed as 1, 2, and 3. We pull this up. All right. Now, if you see here, it is appearing here as 1, 2, and 3. List is displayed in R, and the way list is displayed in Python are entirely different. In the case of Python, list is more frequently used, but in the case of R, lists are not as frequently used. Instead, vectors are more frequently used in R. So let me assign this list function to a variable A. Let me execute that all over again. So when I execute A, it gives me this output. If I want to give names to all these lists, 1, 2, and 3, what I can do here is I can just type names of A, and then I can give some names here in a vector. Because I'm giving names to more than one element, I always have to use a combine operator. So I'll say first, second, and third. So if you see in the first case, I have used a double quote, and the second and third I have used a single quote. So even this is fine as far as programming is concerned in R and Python. Now if I click on the run button, this gets executed. Now if I click on A, the first, so earlier it was 1, 2, and 3. Now it is appearing as first, second, and third. So that's how lists are getting displayed over here. If I want the first element in the list A, all that I need to do is I have to type A, and then if I just put the dollar symbol here, it already shows me what all things I can select. So if I just select first here and then click on the run button, it would give me the value as 1. And similarly, if I do a second or third, it would be giving me the values with respect to those elements. All right, what else can we do here? Now, if I want to look at the first element, all that I need to do is if I type A and the square bracket 1 and I click on the run button, it just gives me the first element. Now, if I don't want the first element, if I want to delete the first element, all that I need to do is assign the value as null for the first element. So if I click on the run button now, A1 is assigned the null value. Now, if I display A again here, it would just be showing the second and third elements because this signifies that I don't want the first element. So it's as good as a delete statement here. And that's how we delete a particular element in a list in R. All right, now if I want to do a A4 equal to R program, A4 is already assigned. Now, if you look at it, there are just two elements here. Now, let me just print A here. What it gives is, this is the first element, this is the second element. Now, the third element is null because we have inserted a fourth element now. This is one way of inserting inside a list. So I have inserted a fourth element in a list which only had two elements before. So because there is no third element, it will automatically assign a value as null for the third element. So that's how lists operate in R. All right. And just like we had in Python, we can also have different data types in a list. So if I type Python here, and then I also type true, and I also type 4.54 as a fraction. And if I click on the run button, I have all these parameters here, and names, since I've only named the first, second, and third, if I click on the run button here, and now if I print A here, so wherever the names have been given, first, second, and third, so those names would be given to those particular elements. Wherever names have not been given for the last three, it would be assigned as NA, meaning not assigned. So there is no name for these particular elements in this list. So that's how lists operate in R, and in Python, we have already seen quite a few things here. You can explore more in R as to how exactly lists operate. However, please make note of the fact that lists in R are not as frequently used as the list in Python. So that's why I have not been very exhaustive as far as list in R is concerned. It's always the vectors in R that are more frequently used. All right. I hope you found this tutorial useful. I hope you're liking my tutorial. Do subscribe to my channel so that you get to know immediately as and when I post videos on my channel. If you have any suggestions, feedback, please do post them in the comment section. See you in the next tutorial. Thank you very much.